My name is Carly Sitchley. I am a CTE program quality assurance analyst on the CTE team at ODE. And I typically help with the CTE program update that happens in the fall, but am helping right now with the data collection until our CTE data analyst, Rebecca, is back in the office. And I also have Liz here with me, who's going to be helping too.
Yeah, it's nice to see a lot of new people here also, because I'm also new to this collection. I'm also a data analyst like Rebecca, and I'm going to be helping analyzing these data. But for the time being, I'm helping with processing the collection coming in. So I just wanted to let everyone know this is training that will be repeated again next week, I believe, and you don't need to attend all of them, but we welcome you to if you'd like, but it's going to have all the same information. We are recording this, so we're going to be posting it on our YouTube channel. We're also going to be sharing the presentation slides and the data submitters guide, all in the data document repository. I'm going to drop a link to that in the chat right now, just so folks can open that up if they want. So that should work. And that's going to have all kinds of resources in it, including this presentation. As questions arise, please type them in the chat, and we're going to address them towards the end of the presentation. So there'll be time at the end for a Q&A. And you can, if you want to speak your question at the end, you may use the hand raise button, but we'll see how it goes. And as many of us know that we've been doing these Zoom meetings for a while, so just attend as best as you can and take breaks as frequently as you need to. We recognize that there's lots of distractions and things going on while we're engaging online. So feel free to take breaks as needed. So I'm going to quickly go over a brief CTE data overview. And we are here to help you, the data team, to help you troubleshoot your collections. Feel free to email us, and we're going to share our email towards the end. But Carly, myself, and Rebecca are happy to help. So there's 3 data collections each school year. We're going to primarily talk about the spring one, but there's also a fall one, and that's in the beginning of the year. And that's the CTE program update. But today we're talking about 2 collections that are happening in the spring, the student and the course. So every year, local institutions, the schools or the districts, submit their student and institution data for that school year, the relevant school year. And then these data are compiled into the CTE data collections, and they're used for state and federal funding reporting, so such as Perkins or career pathways. And it's important that accuracy, the data is as accurate as possible because of the uses we have for it. Here's a calendar showing some due dates. So right now we're in the spring collection. So the student and course, and student is always done first. So those both opened on May 26th, and they are both due July 11th. And then in August 25th, the program update will open. So for schools, it will be due October 28th. And then for the regional coordinators, it will be due December 2nd. And then the program update closes for all approvals January 13th of 2023. So now we're going to go a little bit deeper into the collections, both student and course. So there's 2 different collections that happen simultaneously, but first we have to do the student collection. So for the student collection, there's one row for each student for the entire school. So be it that they participated in CTE or did not, they are still listed in this collection. So for example, if your school has 50 students, which I'm sure it doesn't, but a school that has 50 students across all grades, 9 through 12, the collection should have 50 students in that file. And then the CTE course collection comes next, and that is one record per student per CTE course of the school year. So for example, a school with 50 students, grades 9 through 12, who each took 2 CTE courses in that school year, your report would have 100 course records. So like we said, school year is, or in the spring, we're reporting all of the information for that school year. So for this year, it's 2021 to 2022 only.
I'm going to add one quick thing to that, Liz.
Yeah.
That's just that Liz mentioned the student collection is always done first and the course collection is done second. You don't have to do one and then immediately do the other. So as you're waiting for grades, maybe for the course collection to be submitted, you can do your student collection at any point in the open collection period. So don't feel like you have to wait to do that course, or don't feel like you have to wait to do the student so that you can do the course immediately afterwards. If your student collection information is all ready to go ahead and get that done, and then you can do the course collection when you have the necessary information.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Carly. And then next, we're going to go over some basics types of information or data we're going to be looking at for the student collection. First and foremost is the SSID or student core. And those are fields that are common to all ODE student level collections. So each student will have their own SSID. And then there are the CTE work-based learning or WBL. That field is required, and we're going to show more about that in the next slide, but that field is required, and there's an option to attach hours to that, but that is optional. And then there's the CTE Industry Recognized Credentials or IRC, and there's multiple things that go with that, and we'll have another slide coming up just about that. And then there's the Student Leadership Organization, that is an optional entry. So just a reminder, all students should be submitted in the student collections, even if they did not participate in CTE. Okay, so more about the work-based learning fields. On the left of your screen, that's how it looks when you're interfacing with the web application. There's going to be all these fields. And when you're inputting work-based learning, that always has to be filled out. So there's 4 entries per student per year. So if they did not participate in work-based learning, you would fill all 4 of those fields with Z, which is non-applicable, but then there's all kinds of other codes that are used, B, F, H, K, and they're all listed right there on the left, depending on what type of work-based learning the student did. Just a note that if a student did 2 internships, you would only need to list internship once. So that student may look like, for all 4 of their fields, it would be B, Z, Z, Z. So that's how it would look like when you're filling out these fields. So that is mandatory that all of these fields are filled out for all the students. And you're going to see a lot of Z's on your collection, so that's okay. And then those must be tied to a Perkins approved program of study.
And just because we know that students have multiple opportunities to do things that could be work-based learning type activities. That's why we just clarify that what is being reported needs to be tied to a program of study for CTE. If a student has done something else like a work day through a different student organization that's not at all connected, or like maybe a senior work day or some other kind of experience, that's great. We just only need to have it reported in the collection if it was connected to their program of study.
Yeah, thanks, Carly. That's a really important point. So next is more about those IRC fields, or industry recognized credentials. For each student, there's a max of 2 entries per student per year. And while you're filling those out, please make sure that the SIP code and the IRC code combination is valid. So for our example here, it's health sciences. So make sure that that health sciences IRC code matches the SIP code. So they're both have to do with health sciences. If the student did not attempt an IRC, then you can just leave the fields blank. But once you fill out one of the fields, you have to make sure all of the rest of the fields are filled out. So if you did choose an IRC, make sure that the other fields are filled out. And then the current list of approved IRCs is available on the CTE collection file format code tables. And Carly, where is that again?
That is on the file format, the student file format.
Yes. And I'll drop that in the chat real quick, but we're going to share all of these links at the end again. But here in the chat is the student file format. Okay. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the course collections. So there's 3 data points we collect for course collection. The SSID student core again, the CTE program SIP code, and the CTE course details. So those are the important data we need for the course collection. And just a reminder that CTE course records should be in this submission, even if they do not have passing grades. And I'm going to drop in the chat the course file format link, so you can have that one as well. Another common error in this collection is that SIP codes may not match up, or there's errors. So be sure to verify that your SIP codes are current before you submit this collection.
And this year, that in particular is really important because of the data migration that happened in the fall to the student or to the CTE information system, and the SIP consolidation work that was done during the data migration. So if you aren't sure, it's a good idea to double check your SIP codes with what we have on record for the program, just to make sure that those SIP codes are matching up between your system and our system, because that'll save a lot of potential errors when you upload files into the collections.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because everything has to match from fall to spring. So. And lastly, about course are the course numbers. So those are from the program update, and they validate entries in the spring. So when those are done in the fall, they have to match what is done in the spring. So if course numbers are entered incorrectly in the fall, that will cause a bunch of errors. And then if your course numbers within your SIS or your student information system have a bunch of leading zeros, make sure that that downloaded file did not omit the leading zeros, because we know that some courses, they put zeros in the front. So sometimes the file will just get rid of them, and that's kind of annoying. So just make sure that it did not omit those. And then also make sure that the section numbers are also included on that file.
Sorry, I keep jumping in, Liz.
No worries. You're the expert here.
Not the expert, but so for section numbers, the reason that those are important, if that's something that your school utilizes, is because it helps differentiate if a student took a year-long course and that year-long course shows up twice on their transcript with the same course number, but 2 lines because it's the same course number, just 2 different grading periods. If there's no section number utilized, then it's possible or likely the collection will deduplicate those records because it thinks that they are the same. So it's really important if to utilize section numbers on the file as your system uses them, just to help any potential deduplication that might happen.
Carly?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was reading something real quickly, and this is something that one of our CTE teachers had brought up just recently. So are you saying that, for example, if a year-long, I've noticed that in some of our schools, we have a year-long course, but it shows up as semester 1 and semester 2. So is that what you mean, is to make sure that they're not duplicated for those? Because I think I'm pretty sure that was one of our issues last year with our information, is that it must have been kicking out specific lines because it was recognizing them as being duplicate.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you do have an indicator in your student information system for semester 1 and semester 2, just make sure that that indicator is on the file that gets extracted from the student information system.
Okay.
Because as long as that section number, there's a field in the course collection for a section number, and as long as that field has the appropriate section numbers for that year-long course showing, course 1, 2, 3, semester 1, course 1, 2, 3, semester 2, then the collection doesn't think they are a duplicate record. But if that semester 1 and semester 2 indicator is not listed in the section number field, then it will think that they are duplicate records and get rid of one of them.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about the collection system and kind of the interface for the information that you're providing. So the Consolidated Collections System application is on the district website, and this is where you go to do lots of collections, but today the CTE Student and CTE Course collection. So if you log into the district website, in your list of applications there, you should see a consolidated collections option, and that's what you want to select. And then once you have selected that application option, you'll get this type of screen. And if you have access to more collections than just CTE, you will see a whole list of things here. I only have CTE Course and CTE Student, so that's what I see on mine. This is the tracking page. So from here, I can see if anything has been done yet. I can look at the records that have posted, and if I have already uploaded data, or any records for students, I can see what's posted, when it was done, errors and warnings, and the date of those. And you can see it for both the CTE Student and the CTE Course. And then in that blue kind of banner line there, you'll see student collections. Both the student and the CTE Student and CTE Course collections are considered student collections. So if you hover over that student collections option there, you'll see both student and course. And like Liz said earlier, you always want to start with student. And so you would click on that. Important to make sure that you're on the correct school year, just in case something got adjusted while you were on this page. So make sure that you're on the 21-22 school year, because it wouldn't be great if you were on a different school year. And the count of records posted. So those are once you have uploaded data or done any kind of data input, the records posted are the records that successfully came through. And then the errors are records that have errors on them. Records that have errors are not included in the posted record number. So if you had 10 records posted and you uploaded a file with 20 records and the count of errors is another number, but your records posted only shows 10, those 10 other records that were included in your data upload aren't going to be counted towards the collection number. So it's really important to make sure that you clear all of those errors or any errors that you get so that your records posted is the correct number, so that we're getting all of the data you are trying to submit for your students. So from here, you would click on CTE Student or CTE Course, and it will give you a couple options here. So you can do your data submission, you can look at error management stuff, or you can look at all of the records and do some record management. For data submission, there's two options. You can do a file upload or you can do a web submission. The file upload is a file that you have extracted from your student information system, and we don't have access to the student information system. So my best understanding of that process is there is some magic way to pull that file from your student information system, and it should have all of the necessary fields that match what the collection is asking for. And you would be able to save that to your computer and then upload it using the file upload in the collection. With the file upload, once you have extracted that file from your student information system, it's a great idea to look at your file, go over it, make sure that things are there, look for any discrepancies, see if there's anything that needs to be manually adjusted before making that file upload. And then the other option is web submission to get the information to us. And so web submission is going through all of the students that were previously given to us and being able to update them for this school year and add them to the 21-22 school year as part of the collection information. And it has all of the same fields that would be provided in the file upload, but you would just click through and manually make those adjustments within the system. And there are some schools who only do file upload, and there are some schools who do web submission. It's really personal preference. I think there are pluses and minuses for both ways. And because we are not the experts on that piece, it is interesting to hear from people who are here if there is anyone who wants to talk about why they do a file upload or why they might do web submission. For all of the new people that are here today, it's kind of interesting to hear why they do one or the other. So I don't know if anybody would like to offer their opinion real quick before we move on. Okay, nobody? All right. I'll keep going then. So that's kind of that is the basic way to upload the data to get the information to us for the collections is with that file upload or the web submission. And then once you have the data in the system, it's time to kind of review it and look through it. So hopefully, theoretically, once you have uploaded that file, everything looks good and there's no problems. Everything is as it should be. And you wouldn't have any errors that need to be corrected. That is not always the case. There are oftentimes lots of errors that people have to go through and adjust before they're able to finalize the data that they have submitted to us. So it's important to check for errors after you've uploaded your data. You want to check for, resolve, and make sure you've cleared all of those errors. And like I said before, if you have records that have errors, those and don't rectify them or clear them, then those records that had errors will not be included in the numbers that we have for your data submission. So you want to make sure on that front page that all of the posted records match what you have sent to us. So that we are getting the accurate data numbers, the accurate number of students, and then definitely the accurate number of courses that were taken by the students. And if there are errors, the way to look at those is again, by clicking on that or hovering over that student collections option in that blue banner, you'll see the student and course options there still. And instead of selecting data submission, if you look at error management, there are a couple options there, and review errors will bring up all of the errors that are associated with the data that's been uploaded. And it will give you like which collection, it'll tell you how many errors there are of that specific type. It will tell you what the error type is, and then like give you a little description of the error. And there's a drop down so that you can open that and see all of the records that are associated with that one error. So this is a little bit more of, or a picture of that. So when you're looking at the errors for resolving and clearing them, you would, here is an example of like the error type, the error description, how many errors there are, and if you want to fix them. And there are a couple options for fixing errors depending on what they are and how you want to do that. You can fix them one by one on student records. So if you open up a record, you can go in and make adjustment to that record. The screen will look like the web submission screen. So it'll be all the student information. You can just fix those certain things or that thing that needs to be adjusted, and then save it, and it will be removed from your error section and show up as a record in the submitted data. You can also download the errors. You'll see there is an option in the tabs under error management for download errors. If you download the errors, it will give you a file of all of the data fields similar to what you submitted to us. But it will only be the records that had errors. And you can make the adjustments on that file and fix what needs to be fixed, and then resubmit that file using the file upload system. And that should rectify all of the errors that have, or all of the records that have errors. And then if there's any remaining ones, maybe there's just a couple, you could make those adjustments manually within the system. Or you can delete the file. You could do the housekeeping option that's also there in the tabs. That gets rid of the file that was uploaded. It does not get rid of the records that were successfully posted. So if you wanted to get rid of stuff that way, you could do it, but you would not want to resubmit anything to us that was a posted record. Otherwise, you might end up with new errors because you now have duplicate records being submitted. Or there is also an option for clearing the collection, and that gives you kind of a blank slate. So if you wanted to clear the collection, you could send an email to the data team, Liz, myself, or Rebecca, and we can go in and clear what has been submitted. And so that gives you kind of a blank slate to start from. Sometimes the error count can be a little overwhelming depending on what the error is. Especially if it's for like work-based learning, because if the work-based learning fields didn't get filled out and then you upload a file and there is an error for each one of those empty fields. So there's 4 work-based learning columns that are mandatory for each student record. And if those didn't get filled out, then they can add up really fast in the error count. So if you see 2,000 errors there, it might be kind of overwhelming looking. And so a good way to kind of fix that would be downloading those errors, adding the necessary type code for work-based learning to that downloaded file, and then re-uploading it. And hopefully that would resolve all of the errors and you could move on. Sometimes, one last thing, sorry. Sometimes you'll get errors and they are more involved and they might be a little complicated. If you're not sure what's going on, that's another time when please reach out to us, because we can definitely try to help figure out what's happening, because there are those occasional errors that are really confusing, and we have to kind of play with it to figure out what's going on. So we are always happy to help with that. And just a couple more things to review, and then we will open it up for questions. And so it is important to remember that submitting the data is really the last part of the process in this year-long cycle. Liz showed that calendar of the program update and then the spring collections, and it's just kind of this big circle of data. So in the fall, when you're inputting, or you or whoever does the program update, because we know it's not always the same people doing those 2 processes. So it's really important to remember that what's input in the fall, it affects what can be reported to us in the spring, because the information has to match. You can't report things in your student or course collection. Well, yeah, you can't report things in the collections that we don't have as approved courses, and the course numbers need to match. So it's really great to have a group or multiple people involved to make sure that the information you're submitting in the spring is the most accurate and correct data. And then because it's more than just one person who's responsible for ensuring this whole piece. So if possible, it's great to have both the fall update person and the spring submitters included in that quick file review prior to uploading your data. It's great to have CTE teachers looking at some of those data points, or at least helping ensure that you have the correct information that needs to be submitted. Work-based learning experiences, that's something that teachers are going to know the best. The industry recognized credentials, we know that people definitely want to report those if a student has attained an IRC, because it can have effect on things like pathways. And people who submit data don't always have that information and are not responsible for filling in those blanks if the information is not given to them. So really important to make sure that there are multiple people involved in this process, so that you are submitting the best data in the spring, so that we can accurately count that data and make sure that it reflects what everybody is really doing. It's really a great idea to review your file prior to uploading it. It doesn't have to be a super, you don't have to go through line by line to make sure that it is all correct, but it's a really good idea to like look at your student collection and make sure that all of the grades are included on it. Last year, there was a couple of examples of people or of schools who were missing a whole grade level. So that kind of thing can, have some long-term effects and can definitely affect the numbers. So it's just like glancing through it, making sure that things seem correct, doing those quick verifications of like zip codes, like making sure that zip codes match. Because if you check that on the file before you upload it, it's going to make that whole process easier once it's uploaded, and hopefully create a lot less errors that have to be, fixed or cleared. And it's definitely easier to do that on the file than try to like download and the file, make corrections, have to upload another file. It can just make the whole process go a lot quicker. And always make sure to submit that student file first, because if you try to do your course file first, you're going to get a bunch of errors because the student file creates the pool for the course records that are going to be submitted. So if there's no students listed for the institution, then you won't be able to report any courses that students have taken, because there won't be any students to report those courses for. So just always try to remember to do your student collection first, because it's going to also save you a lot of problems. Along those lines, just remembering that if you're waiting on, if you feel like you have to wait to do your collections until you get those final grades, you can go ahead and do your student collection now. You don't have to wait for those final grades to do the course collection. Get your student collection done so it's out of the way, or at least kind of pull it and do your review and have it ready to go. If you do want to wait for those final grades so that you can do the course collection at the same time as the student collection. But if you feel ready to do one, you can go ahead and do that now, and then just do the course collection when you have the information that you need, because that again can make the process go a little bit quicker, because I know at the end of the year, everybody's ready to get out and start their summer break. So a couple collection resources that are helpful. There are the file format documents that Liz put in the chat, but I'm guessing she's going to put them in again. There's one for the student collection and one for the course collection. The file formats are Excel sheets. If you haven't seen them before, they list all of the fields that are on the collections. The first, I think it's like 50 fields are that student core information, and that is universal across every student collection. So that information is just part of what all student collections ask for. It's just like that basic student information. And then there are a couple CTE specific fields on both of them, and those are the ones that we come up with and ask for. And for each of the fields, there are like the business rule, there's a tab for business rules. So it tells you like specifically what should be included in that required field or not required field. And there are the tables for the fields. So like the industry recognized credential table is on the file formats or file format, the work-based learning tables, the zip code table, all of those kind of informational pieces are included in the file formats. We also have the data submission guide, which is posted on the data doc repository. The data submission guide has some good information. It also has some really helpful steps, like step-by-step instructions with screenshots of the of different sections of the collection. But all of those 3 options I talked about for reviewing and rectifying errors are, there are step-by-step directions for each of those 3 options that are really helpful. It's probably more helpful if you look at the submission guide to get help on fixing those errors that you might encounter than emailing us immediately, and because our directions might not be quite as good or might be not as well written in an email response. So I would highly recommend having that submission guide there as you work on your collections in case you do run into some issues, because I think what's in there will be really helpful for you. There's also like a list of links at the end of the submission guide that might be helpful. All of the links that we have talked about, like the file formats are in there. And then also like the pages for looking at the collection specific information on the district website. There's all kinds of stuff in there. The other thing that you'll find in there is the slides from today's presentation. So if you wanted to go back and look at the slides, or I know people have asked in the chat if the slides are going to be sent out, all of the slides are copied into the submitter's guide at the end of it. And then there's also a report section in the consolidated collection. And there are a couple helpful reports in there. There's a production download, and the production download is will download everything that you have submitted to us. So it's a good way to double check the information you provided to us to make sure that the collection has the information you were trying to give us and somehow something didn't get missed. There's also a, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it, a summary report that lists like the percentage of students you submitted with work-based learning, or the percentage of students that fall into the different student populations, or like the course information that was submitted to us. So that one can be helpful if you want to do a quick review, or if you keep that for your records. You can also find the code, the tables that are on the file format. There are reports for each of those too. So if you wanted to like look at the work-based learning information, you could look in the reports tab and find the work-based learning code table or IRC table. So there's a little bit of helpful information in that reports tab. Think that's it for the resources at this time. And then, except for like Liz and myself and Rebecca, use us as resources as you need to, of course. Ooh, one more resource. Sorry, I just remembered. In the data doc repository, there is a file, an Excel spreadsheet with course information. It is titled like 21-22 program course collection info or something like that. I know in years past, people really like to use the approved programs website to help verify their course information, and the approved program and course information that we have on record at ODE as a way to look at what they have in their student information system to make those comparisons that I talked about recommending with before submitting information to us. And if you have tried to look at that, you have probably seen that it is not updated for this year. That old approved programs website or report does not connect to the CTE information system. So it is not accurate. We are in the process of building an updated approved programs website that will be ready later this summer. So people will have that for next year, but So since we don't have that resource for you, we created the spreadsheet with all of the program and course information that was approved for the 21-22 school year, and pulled all of that information out of the CTE information system and made a spreadsheet, which is not quite as good, but it will hopefully work for this year. So if you do want to look at your course information and try to make sure, do some verification and checking before submitting data to us, that is a resource that you could use. You can also still go into the CTE information system and look at the programs if you have access to that, as a way to verify zip codes and course numbers and stuff. And that was a lot. And that is all the slides, but we do have time for questions. Thank you for coming today. We appreciate you. And Liz is putting our emails in the chat if you do not have them. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.